Hey everybody, and welcome back to What's Cooking with Reach for Resources. I'm Emily, and today I'm going to be taking you through a recipe that's for beef enchilada casserole. It's kind of enchiladas, but without having to roll everything up. So let me show you the ingredients.
We have shredded cheddar, sweet corn that's frozen, corn tortillas, salt, cumin, garlic powder, chili powder, an onion, black beans, red enchilada sauce, petite cut diced tomatoes, refried beans, ground meat of your choice, and a couple of garlic cloves. Start by chopping up your onion and garlic.
All right, everybody, chopping up your onion and garlic is pretty similar to chopping anything else. So I don't need you to see everything that I'm doing, but what I do is I chop off the ends. So chop off each end, which I already did. So then that's that. And we're gonna discard this skin. And so on this one, I'm gonna peel off that skin and we're gonna leave that behind before we chop everything up. And that one's still a little bit dark, so I'll peel off that layer as well. All right, now it's all good. This can all go in my compost. I also wanted to show you the garlic. So here's what you do with the garlic. Usually I trim the two ends, and I'm using a really large knife here. Just make sure that you're careful with your knife. You can also hold things like this so you don't have your fingertips out. That's a good trick to not cutting off a fingertip. So we cut off both ends, and then you can use the side of a blade or a spatula and kind of squish it down, and then that makes it really easy to peel off the skin of the garlic. All right, so that can also go in your compost or in the trash if you don't compost. See, that's kind of a bad spot on mine, so I'm just gonna cut that off. And then I'm gonna do the same thing. I'll let you see what I'm doing again. Just maybe that one end is kind of that needs to go. All right, and then it's super easy to peel that off. Make sure you get all those hard bits, and then we'll scrape that into the compost, and then we'll work on just chopping these up into really small pieces. And I'll keep the garlic separate from the onion for this one. All right, now I've got everything chopped up. I've got my onion on this side and my garlic over here. I'm gonna start by cooking my onion a little bit before I add the meat. So I'll just put a little bit of olive oil in here and heat that up in the pan. So if you're gonna measure, probably like a tablespoon or a teaspoon of olive oil, or vegetable oil is fine too, coconut oil, whatever you got. New stove, just getting used to which one's which here. All right, so I got this. I'm gonna let this heat up for a little less than a minute, and then I'm gonna add my onion. Now that it's been warming up for a couple seconds, I'm gonna take my onion and scoop it into where I put the olive oil. I'm going to use the flat side of the knife and be careful when you're doing that. And then make sure you have a spatula to stir with. I like this wood spatula, but anything would be fine depending on your pan. I have a non-stick pan, so I'm going to stay away from metal. But silicone, wood, bamboo, plastic even is fine for this type of heating up. So usually when you cook onions like this, they say you want to make them until they're translucent. So right now they're still pretty white. I'm just going to cook them for a few minutes till you start kind of to see through them a little bit. Then I'm going to add the garlic, and then after the garlic, then I'll add the meat. So let's get all this on. My guess is that this is going to take about 3 to 4 minutes. While my onion is cooking, I'm going to get a few other things ready. So I found a 9 by 13 inch pan that I'm going to use for this. So you find a pan if you don't have one yet. And it also says that we're going to cook our corn according to the package directions. So mine doesn't cook in the bag, but yours might. So read the directions. Mine says put it in a quart glass casserole, add a quarter cup of water, cover in microwave on high for 6 minutes, and drain halfway through cooking time. So I'm going to get that started. Oh, looks like Ziggy's joining us today. So I'm going to get the corn started in the microwave too, so that that's ready when everything else is ready to go in the casserole. All right, I got a scissors, a cooking shears here. I'm just going to cut my bag open. Found a glass bowl that I can put this in. And then we're going to add a quarter cup of water. And it looks like my onion's getting close, so then when I get back, we can start on the garlic. Okay, and then we're going to want to cover this as well. So I've got some lid covers right up here. Oh, it looks like it fits. Okay. It says 6 minutes. My oven is, or microwave is really strong, so I'm going to just do 4 minutes. Okay, looks like my onion is translucent. I don't know if you can tell the difference in this camera, but I'm going to add the garlic now. Let's say we should do the garlic for just 1 to 2 minutes before adding the meat. Looks like my onion got a little bit done, but that'll be just fine. I'm using venison today. It's what we had in the freezer. So probably ground beef is what a lot of you will select, but ground turkey would work. I'm sure ground chicken would work too. It would just be kind of a different spin. So, you'll start to smell the garlic when it's kind of starting to warm up a little bit. And I think I smell mine, so I'm just going to put this in. And we don't want our temperature on too high for this. I'd say like medium high. I'm going to shoot for medium probably here. Toss this stuff right away. And then what you want to do is just kind of break up your meat so that it is kind of in one layer, one even layer in your pan. I didn't mention what size pan to use, so hopefully you'll use one kind of similar to mine in size. The smallest pan probably isn't going to work if you have a whole pound or so of meat. And you can make it work, but you'll have to stir it a little more often. All right, so I've got mine in a uniform layer here. I'm just going to let that go for a minute or two, and then we'll stir it and do it again. So let's see, I want to just kind of keep this moving. We don't want it to get too cooked here. I mean, you want it to be cooked all the way through. So the way that you'll know, at least for ground beef and venison, is that it won't have the pink or red color to it anymore. Turkey and chicken will change color a little bit as well, but it might be a little more subtle. We just don't want it to be overcooked. We don't want it to be turning around from sitting in there too long. So the way to do that is to kind of keep it moving, and if you're going to let it sit, it is good to let it sit to let it cook a little bit, but maybe like 1 minute at a time and then stirring it again. It really cooks pretty fast. Alright, we're going to continue stirring this. Just watching the color change, and I did just stir my corn a minute or two ago, and now it sounds like it's done. So I'm just going to leave it in there for the time being. We're going to get to the layering part soon here. I think it's done. So I've been cooking it for, well, I actually didn't look at the time, but probably 7 minutes or so. stirring ongoing and watching the color, and I'm pretty sure it's done. So I'm going to turn it off. And I'll just remove it from the heat and put it on a different burner for now. The next thing we're going to do is get started on our layering. So what we need to do is start with clean hands. And if you have long hair, maybe pull that back as well. Pull that back first, and then wash our hands. And then we'll meet back here and we'll start layering. It says here to put half of your enchilada sauce in the pan before you start layering. So I actually went with kind of a bigger can than it suggested, just because I like the enchilada sauce and I wanted it a little saucier. So I just opened it with a can opener here, and I think really you just kind of pour and estimate a half a can, and then just make sure you've got a really good base layer. You can spread it out a little bit more with a spatula. There you go. It's gonna have a good base layer for your enchilada casserole. And then the next thing we're gonna do is open up our corn tortillas. Oh, I've got a bag here. And this is spread half of the refried beans on 6 corn tortillas. Then place the tortillas bean side up over sauce in the dish, and you overlap them to fit. So I'm going to count to 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we open our refried beans. And the recipe that I'm using today, I'm going to send the link out. It has a recipe to make your own enchilada sauce, which I've never done before. But it looks fairly easy if you're feeling ambitious and have all the ingredients or want to pick up the ingredients. So I'm going to use the same spatula. It's fine if it has a little sauce. It's all going into the same thing. No worries. So just pick it up, hold one of these in your clean hand. I did just wash from one of my breaks that I turned the video off for. And I definitely don't think it has to be perfect, but something like that. All right, and then we'll throw it in there. Just make sure you can see what I'm doing here. And I know sometimes I go fast or like turn the video off because I don't want you to have to sit there while I'm waiting for things. And so you can always pause the video so that you can get your steps done once you know what you're doing. Pause, fast forward, whatever works for you. And I'll send out the recipe link as well. So if that's easier for you to just kind of go off the recipe, you can do that. All right, so I have half of them here. I'm going to get the other half going. Looks like I'm kind of already at half of my beans, so maybe I need to slow up on my beans. There we go. Now, it said overlapping to fit is fine, so I'm just going to go with it. I've never tried this recipe before, so I guess that's kind of brave to make a video about a recipe that you've never made before. Hopefully we like it. Last one. There we go. All right, next says, stir together the remaining enchilada sauce, the corn, the black beans, the spices, salt, ground beef, and undrained tomatoes into a large bowl. So I better get all that stuff together. I think I've got everything ready here to mix together for the layers. I'm going to pour the petite cut diced tomatoes, and it said not to drain that one, so I followed that direction. I did drain my black beans, rinse and drain those, so It didn't say anything specifically about those. Scrape those out a little bit. Wish I would have remembered about this step. I could have just used this big bowl to heat up my corn, but I didn't. So more dishes for me. So I guess if you're pre-watching this before you try it yourself, that's one piece of advice. You could just use one big glass pan for your corn to heat that up instead of doing what I'm doing and moving it from one glass bowl to another. A little bit of water left in there, so I'm just gonna leave that behind. All right, I've got 3 things together so far. I'll just stir those up as they are before we add anything else. All right. Then I'll add the rest of the enchilada sauce. It's ready to go. And the meat. So I made venison, and I don't need to drain my venison because it is very lean. Depending on how lean your meat is, I would recommend, with most beef, probably draining it. And if you don't know how to drain it, just hold a cover on top of it, and you might need help the first couple times you do this. I mean, even doing it all the time, I still make a mess. So you put a cover on here, and then you have like an empty can, like this one would be nice. And then you just want to let kind of the fat, juicy stuff run into the can, and then you can let that harden and throw it away. I've got my meat in here and my sauce. The only thing left is the spices. So I'm gonna just stir it a little bit with where we're at. Measure my spices. So I've got those ready. I'm gonna scroll back up on my recipe. I don't have it memorized. Okay. 1 tablespoon chili powder. I've got this big one. I'm just gonna take the whole cap off. I've got a tablespoon here. One thing I don't like about a tablespoon is that it doesn't fit. So I wouldn't pour it over your food, because then if it comes out too fast, it's going to go into your food and there's no going back. So I've got it, you can't really see it, but I'm leveling it off a little bit over here. There we go. So I've got a nice level tablespoon of chili powder. Then 1.5 teaspoons of cumin. Baking is a little different than cooking, but normally with cooking, I will just kind of estimate. So if it's 1.5, I've got my 1 here. Normally I just kind of fill up 1 to the best of my ability, and then I'll just kind of eyeball second half. But if you would like to, you're very welcome to use your 1/2 teaspoon and get that exact. For baking, I would recommend doing that. But with these kinds of spices, it can be a little bit flexible. All right. 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder and 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. So here's my garlic powder. Now I will use my 1/2 teaspoon, since that's the only measurement I'm making, and I'll just try to make it as level as I can. There you go. And 3/4. So they don't usually give you a 3/4 teaspoon, so you'd have to do a 1/2 and a 1/4, or a 1/2 and then eyeballing it. Salt, I'm a little bit sensitive to. I don't like it to be too salty, so I'll be a little conservative on that one. Okay. I think that's all the spices it calls for. I'm surprised there's no pepper, but there's not, so I'll keep going. And you just want to stir this all up real good so that you don't get one bite that has all the flavor. It's kind of like making your own taco seasoning. If you've never made your own taco seasoning, I do it all the time, mostly because I don't like the added salt content of most other taco seasoning. You can just Google, there's a million recipes out there, and I usually have all the spices on hand. Once you buy them, you'll have them on hand too. I usually make kind of a big, a big jar's worth and just use that for a little while. Okay, next step. We've done all that, and then we want to spread half this mixture over the corn tortillas and then layer it with 1 cup of cheese. Okay, so this looks like it might be messy, but that is all right. So let's see, you could just do a pour, or I might grab a scoop to make it a little easier. I'm just going to use a measuring spoon and just kind of use that. And still going to be eyeballing because I don't know how many cups of mix there are in there. I guess I'll let you know what I do, and then we'll see if it's too much or too little. So I did 3 scoops. They're not totally full, so I'm going to do 4 of those. So it might be, just over 3 cups that I put in there, and that looks like about half. That looks good. And then what we're going to do again is repeat that layering that we just did. So we're going to get some more refried beans on 6 more corn tortillas, and then put this on there again with cheese. And I almost forgot the cheese. That would have been a bummer. Okay, it said spread 1 cup of cheese over the top. So this is a half cup, so I'm just going to do that twice. I'm going to shake it around. All right, so since you all watched me do the 3 layers, so the corn tortillas with refried beans, then everything else mixed together, then cheese, I'm just going to do that again. So you don't need to watch me do it again, just do it again at home, and then we'll see what we need to do next. I would say now is a good time to preheat your oven. So I would turn your oven on to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're going to get ready to bake it once we have all these steps done. My 3 layers are complete, and I got a lot of cheese on top. It looks really good and nice and full. So when your oven is ready at 350, we'll just put it in, bake it uncovered for 35 minutes or until it's hot throughout. The center will be hot and the casserole will be bubbling kind of around the edges. So it should look done. I'll show a picture of kind of what mine looks done at the end. Before you cut it up, let it sit for about 5 minutes, and then you can cut it in 8 or 12 pieces, depending on how big you want to cut it, and add your toppings that you'd like. So shredded lettuce, sour cream, if you have avocado, if you want additional hot sauce, whatever would suit you. So I'm going to throw mine in the oven and enjoy your casserole. Make sure it's kind of on the medium level, so it's not too close to the top or too close to the bottom. Can't wait to see how it turns out.
Well, we added a little extra sauce and this one turned out a little bit soupy, but the flavor is really great. I hope yours turns out well too. Enjoy.